there, savvy home buyers and sellers. This is Jeff O'Leary, the Village Guru, and welcome to the April 2021 Greater Toronto Real Estate Market Report. As with always, it's never a dull moment when we talk about real estate in Toronto. And if you're a home buyer or seller, you're not going to want to miss this episode. So let's go. Well, here I am to give you the news that you've probably already heard. It was another record month for real estate in the Greater Toronto Area. Now, when we look at home sales in the GTA for all home types, sales were up over 50% from the same time last year. Now, if you're a studier of history, then you realize that at this time last year, we went into full lockdown, people stopped buying houses, and our real estate market ground to a halt. So the fact that sales are up when we compare this last month to the previous year, that's no big surprise. I mean, for the next foreseeable future, probably the next 4 or 5 months, you're gonna see a much higher level of sales when comparing year over year, just because that's when the market was quite slow. Now, when we look at prices, home prices have increased on average for all home types over 16.5% from the same time last year. And this continues the trend that we saw during the fall and into this year of pent-up buyer demand and increases in housing prices. Now, when we get into the stats in a little more detail, we will see that single family homes are still outperforming condos, and we still see that the outlying areas in the city are growing at a much more rapid pace than the city of Toronto itself or the interior areas. However, over the last few months, I have noticed a definite uptick in sales and prices in the city of Toronto and the inner suburbs such as Mississauga, which is telling me that buyers are getting comfortable with the fact that eventually they may be going back to work, they may have to be close to Toronto. So we're seeing that kind of come back at the same time as the greater 905 area is still continuing to grow. All right, so before we get into the numbers, let's go over my favorite part of this show, and that is breaking news. Well, if you've been looking at the news lately, you can tell that it is horrible in Canada. I mean, if you're just to go through the headlines, this combined with coronavirus, man, it's pretty damn depressing. If I just take a quick look at the headlines when I go to Google, we see things like Realtor warns that Canadian home prices could fall 40%. Wait a minute. Nobody ever listens to realtors, but yet somebody talks about something horrible and they get on page one of Google. That must be a hint. Not just Toronto and Vancouver, Canada's housing bubble's gone national. Calls grow to end blind bidding to cool red-hot housing markets across Canada. Canada's housing frenzy is a problem that won't fix itself. And on and on and on. What I'm noticing in the news is a trend that a lot of writers are saying that it's nobody's fault and that the government needs yet again to come in and fix something that, I'm sorry to say, they had a big hand in causing the problem to begin with. But anyway, we will get to that later. However, just so you don't feel like you're in a bubble on your own as a Canadian, let's take a look at what some areas in the US are experiencing. So here we go from California. A $400,000 house got 122 offers in 2 days, highlighting the desperate frenzy buyers are facing amid skyrocketing real estate prices and a dearth of homes for sale. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? Next, let's go to Florida. South Florida's real estate market red hot a year into the COVID pandemic. Okay, maybe it's just California and Florida. But here we are in Texas. Austin housing market shatters records. Let's go over to Colorado. Another month, another record home price in Colorado Springs. Okay, so this is not just a Toronto and Vancouver problem or a Canadian problem, but a North American-wide real estate issue. And honestly, it comes down to this. Governments are going to continue to print money in order to pay for all the things that we've been doing with COVID-19, and therefore, people are investing their money in hard assets that is a hedge against inflation. And one of those is real estate. See, no matter what happens, there's only so much land in the world. You can't just keep creating land. And we're not building homes at a fast enough rate in order to keep up with the immigration that we're going to need to attract in order to pay the bills that we've run up over the last 2 years. So therefore, it just makes sense that real estate will continue to go up and then throw low interest rates as gasoline on the fire, and you have the perfect storm of continuing rising housing prices. So what does this mean for the forthcoming future? Well, if everybody in the news has their way, we're gonna have more government regulation. In fact, there's a lot of speculation that something's gonna come down the pipe to cool the red hot housing market. I mean, it worked in 2017, right? I mean, housing never went up again, did it? No, not necessarily. What it did cause is a hiccup in the market, people to get nervous, to stop doing things for 3 and 4 months. And some people took advantage of that and did take advantage of lowered house prices, but then the market again rebounded as it could because the fundamentals of our real estate market were never addressed, which is supply and demand. I keep going through this over and over again because it's really a simple phenomenon that nobody really wants to talk about because it involves hard work and it involves multi-years of a true strategy in order to make housing affordable and for people to get the homes that they want. I mean, I've made a big video about this back in 2020, why I still remain bullish on Toronto real estate prices, and it's based on the facts that are out there on the internet from government sources about how we're still projecting our population to continue to grow in the GTA by millions of people, yet the housing starts are at historically low levels. And this is especially true with detached homes and semi-detached homes. And let's face it, and we're not building them fast enough. There's too many regulations on federal, provincial, local levels, environmental regulations. Nobody's really thought about this, but at the same time, we're still continuing to grow our population. In fact, here's an article from February where Trudeau's immigration pivot spurs a jump in permanent residents. And if we read closely, it says a new Trudeau government strategy to attract more permanent residents appears to be working. Canada's top immigration official said, putting the country on pace to exceed its goal of admitting over 400,000 new residents this year. Okay, so we're increasing immigration, we're not building enough homes, we've lowered interest rates. I mean, it doesn't take any rocket science to see that housing prices are going to continue to go up. So now the guess is, what's the government going to do? They're probably going to have to hammer down on first-time home buyers and the people at the lowest end of the market who just want to get a home, because they're not going to raise interest rates because that affects other areas of the economy and we're stuck in a pickle. And as always, politicians like to say they fixed something, which really means that they've suppressed it and we will deal with it 6 months, 2 years down the road. Let me give you a visual example of how real estate works. Picture real estate as a bucket, and the size of the bucket is the amount of homes available. Now, picture the water that you pour into the bucket as the amount of demand that's in this real estate market. So as the population increases, you pour more water into that bucket and the water level rises. Now, take a cork and put it on top of the water. The cork represents real estate prices. So as the water level rises, the cork will rise. Now, if you want to be the government and you want to say you're doing something, what you do is you make a rule that is almost like getting your finger and artificially pushing that cork down. So prices start to go down by knocking demand out. However, you haven't either increased the size of the bucket or you haven't taken water out of the bucket. So you can hold that cork down, but eventually you have to let go of that cork. And when you do let go of that cork's gonna shoot to the top, probably jump out a little higher before it settles back down at the level that the water is. So as I see it, we're still pouring more water into that bucket. We're not making the bucket bigger, or at least not fast enough in order to keep that water at the same level or even lower, because if you make the bucket really big, then the water level will lower even with the same amount of water. So again, all we're gonna see is continuing push down the prices and then let them jump back up as soon as everybody forgets about it. Either way, I think it's going to be an exciting year for real estate in the GTA. Let's keep an eye on what they actually decide to do. Okay, so now let's quickly get into the numbers for the GTA. Following the same trend of the last 6 months, the 905 region, the suburbs of Toronto, have been vastly outperforming the city of Toronto itself in terms of price increase. And when we look at the type of home, detached houses, semi-detached, and townhouses have taken the cake as the properties that have gone up in value the most. When we look at detached houses, you can see in the 416, they've done really well, almost 20% increase. So you can see they're coming up now. However, they're still lagging behind what's happened in the 905 that had gone up over 31% year over year. Now, as a side note, do I expect housing prices to continue to go up 30% a year? No, they can't continue to go up that way. At some point, there'll be a leveling off of these prices or a cool down, and that's just part of the market cycle. Having said that, do I believe they'll still continue to go up in the future? You bet I do. Because again, the market fundamentals say they will, and single detached houses are the least amount of houses being built. Now, when we look at semi-detached homes again, Toronto's gone up about 11%, while the 905 has gone up 20%. Same with townhouses, 15% increase in Toronto with over a 22% increase in the 905. And especially when we look at condos, the city of Toronto is still actually in the negative, only very slightly now, while condo prices have continued to even go up at a more accelerated pace in the 905 at over 13.5%. Now, I do want to talk about condos in Toronto because I did do an analysis last month showing that the condo market in downtown Toronto was hit very hard last year and into the beginning of this year. However, it is showing a rebound and prices are slowly starting to come up. So as we can see with the very expensive single detached houses, buyers are coming back to condos because in the long run, Toronto's still a good location and it's a good investment to buy some real estate. Well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed my April 2021 Greater Toronto Real Estate Market Update. If you have any questions about real estate, always feel free to call or email me. I'm Jeff O'Leary, the Village Guru. Have yourself a safe day.